election is the inside story, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. The top story now here in Al Jazeera. The Day of Martyrs is underway in Egypt. More protests are expected across the country as demonstrators renew calls for President Hosni Mubarak to step down. Well, banks in Egypt are set to reopen briefly at 0800 GMT. Weeks of unrest have paralyzed businesses and brought the lucrative tourism industry to a halt. And Egypt's largest opposition group, the Muslim Brotherhood, says it's ready to enter into talks with the government. The meeting is scheduled to take place in Cairo within the next few hours. Well, at least 2 people were killed in Tunisia when police opened fire on a crowd of demonstrators in the northern town of Kef. State media says the clashes erupted after an officer allegedly hit a woman during a protest outside a police station. Another 17 people were injured. The Interior Ministry says the local police chief has been arrested. Well, 3 weeks after the fall of Tunisia's president, Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali, there's still uncertainty about the future. Many opposition figures say they're not being included in political processes despite assurances from the interim government. Nazari Mushiri reports from the capital, Tunis.
It was a frightening moment for opposition leader Monsef Marzouki as he made his way through the streets of the capital. This footage given to Al Jazeera shows a former exile set upon by what he says are plainclothes secret police. He told me Ben Ali's security forces are still operating here freely.
We got rid of the dictator, but the dictatorship is still there. I mean, the secret police is still there. The party of the dictatorship is still there.
Praying for peaceful times. Rashid Ghannouchi was also exiled under Ben Ali. With many members of his Islamic Ennahda movement imprisoned or tortured. He says the new government isn't legitimate. His party and many other opposition groups have been shut out of the political process.
The
people must protect their revolution if they value the achievement of toppling the dictator. The blood of the martyrs is in their hands, and not all their goals have been achieved. The street must be ready. The genuine opposition must come together to build on a common vision.
This is the man who could unite the opposition. Najib Chebi lived through Ben Ali's regime. Just a month ago, addressing his supporters like this would have been impossible. Now he has a real chance of becoming Tunisia's next president.
Don't have the right to fail. You know, Tunisia is now mature to establish a democratic regime and to begin real and just development.
The headquarters of the former ruling party, the RCD, has now been dismantled. Big questions still remain over whether there has been a break with the past. A promised investigation into corruption and human rights abuses has been criticised as slow and inefficient, and nobody knows when there's going to be a free and fair election. The opposition says it wants more time to prepare for those elections. Tunisia is now in uncharted territory. Building a new democratic nation is not going to be easy. Nazanin Moshiri, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
3 US citizens charged with espionage are expected to go on trial in Iran on Sunday. Their families say the 3 were hiking in northern Iraq when they were arrested in July 2009. Tehran initially accused them of illegally crossing into Iran and added spying charges later. Sarah Shurd was released on bail in September. A lawyer says he doesn't know whether she'll return to Iran or be tried in absentia. Kazakhstan's long-serving leader has dropped a proposed referendum to extend his term in office for another 10 years. Well, instead, President Nursultan Nazarbayev has called elections for April. Opposition groups say it leaves them no time to prepare. The change of tack comes as Kazakhstan wraps up the Asian Winter Games. Robin Forrester-Walker reports.
It's the largest international event ever hosted in Central Asia. Over $1 billion has been spent making the Asian Winter Games happen. Kazakhstan has forged ahead of its neighbours. International events like these Winter Games are a sign of Kazakhstan's growing prosperity, and most people tend to link that with their president.
President Nazarbayev making a lot of things, maybe developing Kazakhstan.
Nur Sultan is like an immortal in Kazakhstan.
Popular he may be, but after 20 years, President Nazarbayev has brought little democracy to Kazakhstan. His one-party parliament has instead tried to keep the status quo by proposing to hold a referendum to extend Mr. Nazarbayev's rule until 2020. But on Monday, the president did the unexpected.
As the first democratically elected president, and solely in the best interest of the country, I have decided not to hold a referendum. I am submitting a proposal to hold early presidential elections, despite it being 2 years before the end of my current term in office.
Critics say this is not a push in a democratic direction. Independent monitors have never judged Kazakh elections free or fair.
It's too pity that President Nazarbayev tried to save power, but he is not tried to develop here very strong political institution. I mean, for example, party system. I mean, our parliament.
Kazakhstan is a long way from Cairo. Stability and prosperity are a good tonic against popular discontent. But without the appearance of legitimacy, even President Nazarbayev may be wondering whether any regime is too big to fall. Robin Forestier-Walker, Al Jazeera, Almaty.
Thailand and Cambodia have agreed to a second ceasefire in as many days after renewed fighting in a disputed border region. Cambodian soldiers and Thai forces exchanged gunfire near a contested 900-year-old temple on Saturday. One Thai soldier died in that exchange. 3 other soldiers and a civilian were killed in clashes on Friday. More heavy rains are hampering rescue efforts across flood-stricken regions of Sri Lanka. At least 5 people have died in the north and east of the country. Hundreds of thousands have been displaced. The National Disaster Management Centre is struggling to cope. Minel Fernandez reports now from Colombo.
The waters raged once again, sweeping everything in their path. Worst hit was the north-central province. Swollen irrigation tanks breaching their banks. One reported to have unleashed around 55,000 cubic acres of water. Many villagers were cut off by the floodwater, boats their only hope. Over 1 million people have been affected, and more than 230,000 have been forced to leave their homes for temporary shelters. In the Central Highlands, authorities issued a landslide alert and declared a state of emergency in some areas.
Our kitchen was buried by a landslide at the back of the house.
It wasn't just people facing hardships. This baby elephant was among the wildlife caught by rising waters. The military and police are helping with the rescue and relief efforts. But despite the devastation, there were some moments of hope. This baby born on a helicopter as her mother was flown to safety. In Colombo, charities are trying to gather food and clothing to send to victims. But they face a major problem delivering this aid, as many roads are impassable. Emergency supplies and food stocks are being loaded up behind me to be taken to the hundreds of thousands of people affected by this latest round of flooding. But it'll take a whole lot more for those affected by this latest disaster to get on their feet again. Minel Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Colombo.
The coldest weather in 40 years is continuing to paralyze much of northern Mexico. Among the worst-hit areas is Ciudad Juarez. The city is at the center of the government's war with drug cartels. Well, temperatures have dropped as low as -18 degrees Celsius. Thousands of homes are without electricity or water. Republicans are gathering in the U.S. state of California to mark the 100th anniversary of former President Ronald Reagan's birth. For some politicians, the commemoration is a chance to link themselves to one of their party's most celebrated icons. Khodia Khavi reports.
As an actor, he was overshadowed by bigger stars. As a president, few can match his legacy. But that hasn't stopped Republicans from trying to play the part.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.